Hello and welcome back to the American Experience. We have a great show for you today. I'm super excited about this show personally. Our topic for today is going to be shortwave radio, both broadcasting, listening, and how you can use it to communicate with other people. It's another episode in my series about alternative forms of communication to the cell network and all of that. And before I begin, let me remind you to click that subscribe button, click that like button, ring that notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. A couple notes before I begin. Note number one, I'm going to have some notes in some stuff in the description below. So check that out. Links to radio websites, all of that good stuff. Second of all, okay, so this is an America First podcast, in case you didn't notice by me putting on the description, America First Red Pill Patriot. We're talking about shortwave radio in the context of how can it benefit right-wing movements, kind of at large, whether it's militia movements, the America First Groyper movement, normie conservative, libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, Hoppian, all of that, anti-globalist. We're talking about how this can be a method of communication that right-wing movements can use to communicate with each other without having to use the cell network, the internet, Wi-Fi, etc., satellite, etc., etc. And I say that because I think it's an important thing to preface. I'm going to be talking about it in a way that is about how right-wing movements like mine can use this. So everything I'm going to talk about here is relevant to anyone across the political spectrum. That being said, if you do not like hearing someone talking about how their political movement can use something like radio communications, and you don't like people politicizing talks about radio comms, then this is not the right show or episode for you. However, if you're fine with that, if you just don't care, if you just want the info, even though you're some Antifa person or you're some anarcho-communist, that is completely fine. Just be aware that I'm going to be talking about it in the way that I'm going to be talking about it. That's just a note there. And then second of all, because of the fact that this is a right-wing movement and this is an America First YouTube channel, and I'm talking about shortwave radio in the context of how America First Patriots, militia members, etc. can use it, I am going to mention and suggest a few shortwave broadcast radio shows that someone who is not right-wing might disagree with, probably will disagree with. So just be aware of that too. With that being said, that's all we got to talk about. Sorry, I just have to take a sip of my Coke float. With all that being said, we're going to get into it, of course. Let's start off with a brief introduction to why the cell network is not reliable and why you need shortwave radio. And here is why I'm bringing up the cell network, because that is the primary way we communicate with other people. Cell network, internet, use the same towers, tomato, tomato. Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing them up is because it's an incredibly fragile system, and I want to incredibly simplify it. So let us start. I'm gonna sorry, I have to refresh the page. There we go. Okay. Weird. It's doing something goofy. Just quickly deleting this drawing. All right, let's get back into it. So this is you. you. Sorry if my drawings aren't that great. And you have a cell phone or a cellular device of kind. Maybe a laptop, maybe something where you're communicating to somebody and you're using Wi-Fi, internet, cell networks, somewhere to get to somewhere to communicate with people. This is your cell tower, okay? This is your nice little cell tower. Hold up. Let me see if I can... Let's see if I can enlarge it, but I guess not. This is your... your cell tower. Now, all your communications go from your phone to your cell tower. Now, let's say you just wanted to talk to a friend around your town. Well, if your cell tower is in the middle of your town, okay, you can communicate with him. Good. No issues, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's say you want to communicate with your friend 2 towns over. So now your cell tower takes your cell phone signal and either through wires or super high radio frequencies, it retransmits the signal to this tower. Yay, now you can talk with your friend. Now let's say you want to talk to your grandparents just a few states, a few counties over. So now you're going through quite a few cell towers, and now your grandparents are here, right here where the X is. So via this network of towers that carry your signal, you're able to communicate. And that's why it's called cell towers, because it's like cells in a body. It's how they all kind of group together and do different functions and help each other out. In the same way, that's how cell towers work, is they're basically individual cells in this massive kind of conglomerate of sorts and that sort of thing. So you're talking to your grandparents. Now, this is the only way that you are able to talk to them, through the cell phone tower network. They don't have any radio comms. They don't have any landlines. Even if they did have a landline, it'd probably pass through a tower and all that. So you're basically stuck using this to communicate with them. All right, let's say this tower quits working. Oh, okay, so now your signal passes through to these 2 towers, so you can talk to the next town, but they can't get to your grandparents because this tower doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Well, maybe it was damaged in a hurricane. Maybe there were some other issues. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that it's destroyed and you can't use it. Oh no, you can't use it. Darn it. How are you going to talk to your grandparents? Well, you can't, unless if you have radio comms. An alternate, and that's kind of using like a natural disaster, bad luck scenario. Let's just use another scenario. Let's say you are an America First, Nick Fuentes listening Groiper, and you're part of a right-wing militia, and you're trying to talk with your buddy over here. And you're doing this through the cell network. And let's say the cell phone company or the government or Google or whoever is, whatever website or something you're using, it's all going through cell towers. Let's say the government or some big corporation doesn't like what you're saying. Okay, they're just gonna block your signal. You can't transmit out there. So now your buddy has a frown face because your buddy can't talk to you. And because you don't have any other form of communication, since all your communication has to pass through these towers, whether it's through computers, whether it's you're using a computer, or you're using a phone, or you're using a tablet or something, since it all has to pass through these cell tower networks, you're screwed. You just can't talk to them. And that's what I mean by it's fragile. Number 1, it's fragile. It can just be easily destroyed. Number 2, it's fragile. It's just super easy to block people from communicating with other people if the government, if large corporations don't want you communicating. All right, well, that's kind of stupid. So now you're sad because now you can't talk with your buddy. So what are you going to do? Well, you can't really do much. So you're kind of stuck, unless if you have radio communications. Now, radio comms, in the general sense, when most people hear the term radio comms, they think, oh, I'll just use a walkie-talkie, something that looks like this. And I'll talk to my buddy, this is the radio wave, the next town over, and somehow we'll be able to do that, and it'll work. That's a lie. These walkie-talkies operate on UHF and VHF frequencies, meaning they can only talk like max of 10 miles. So unless if under good conditions, and normally that 10 miles means it can talk 10 miles without any like cement, any metal in the way. 10 miles is like how far you can go in the country or from like a mountaintop to a mountaintop. 10 miles is not how far it can go through a city because radio signals are blocked by cement and such. So no, you can't use these walkie-talkies to communicate with your buddy. But you could use low power, low height antennas using shortwave frequencies, or also known as NVIS. And NVIS allows you to communicate with people locally, regionally, and etc. using high frequency or shortwave radio frequencies. Now, we're going to get into using NVIS later in the next episode, and just for this episode, we're just talking about shortwave frequencies overall. So what are shortwave frequencies? Well, I'm glad you asked. Shortwave radio, or also known as high frequency radio, consists of radio frequencies between 3 and 30 megahertz. And what makes them special is because of their spot on the radio spectrum. They're short enough, they're long enough of radio frequencies that they can hit the atmosphere at a low enough angle that they're short enough that they will bounce off. What do I mean by they're lucky in that regard? Okay, so VHF and UHF signals, which are your walkie-talkie FM radio, they're shortwave, they're shorter frequencies than HF. However, they don't hit the atmosphere at the right angle that HF does. Instead of just bouncing off of it, they'll literally just pass through the atmosphere into space. While lower frequencies, think AM radio and all that below HF, this graph thing doesn't show up, but they are below HF, they're so long that eventually they can travel very far, 1,000 miles during night, etc. But they're so long that they can't bounce off of the atmosphere. But HF is in this perfect little spot on the radio spectrum where they are able to do that. So a brief little guide to shortwave radio, as I said, 3 to 30 megahertz. There's kind of a couple major stations that can be heard. Number one, you can hear worldwide broadcasting stations like AM broadcasters, and they're broadcasting. Some of them are broadcasting stations for countries like, I believe, Voice of America used to operate. BBC used to have shortwave. Both of those don't have it anymore, but they used to. Cuba has radio stations. North Korea, South Korea have radio stations. I think Russia still does. China has radio stations. Australia used to, but they don't have it anymore. A lot of countries do. Mostly it's countries that are not as wealthy. Mostly it's non-Western countries. Those are the countries that still operate broadcast stations. And then you also have private radio, AM-like broadcast stations that transmit just whoever has money to buy airtime. So you'll hear religious programming, music, political programming, often very right-wing political programming. That's what you'll hear. Then you have ham radio and CB radio stations where you'll be able to hear people talking to each other. CB we'll get into next week, and that is an unlicensed radio service. A low-power one that enables both local, regional, and long-distance communication. Ham radio is a licensed radio service that I am licensed for. You have to get a call sign, you have to pass a test. And when you become a ham, you're able to essentially get shortwave radio frequencies where you can consistently talk long distance or consistently talk locally and regionally. You'll also hear pirate radio, or you'll hear people illegally using radio frequencies they were not given to transmit broadcasts, just like AM radio or FM radio pirates. They're just like that, except they're operating on shortwave. And they're an advantage is that you can hear them for a much longer distance. And also the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which is the big bureaucratic Washington, D.C. federal agency that manages radio communications for the USA. They don't really care about shortwave broadcasting anymore. It's not as important as it used to be, so they don't really care if there's pirate radio on shortwave as much as they care if there's pirate radio on AM or FM. This is largely due to the fact that they make a lot of their revenue from TV stations, AM and FM radio stations, because you have to pay for your station. Whereas shortwave, there's only I think 3 still running in the US. So it's not worth it for them to really hunt down shortwave pirates. And also shortwave pirates operate very low frequency, very low power, and often they're just around regionally. You don't really hear them worldwide as much because they operate on so much low power. Last thing you'll hear is just maritime, aeronautical, military frequencies. Basically just frequencies that from various other radio services, land force management, ships out in the ocean, airplanes when they're far away, when they're crossing oceans, they use shortwave frequencies, and of course the military. One advantage of shortwave is that it can be very, very cheap. I'm going to show this literally right now, basically. I'm going to Amazon.com. And I'm going to search up shortwave radio. And you can get some dirt cheap shortwave radios. Look at this guy. R11, 45 bucks. Look at this guy. Pocket radio, 27. Emergency solar. Oh no, that's just AM FM. Over here, 84. There's some expensive ones too. I'll get into why some are expensive and why some are cheap. I believe, let me see, 17 here. $9 here. And these all work, by the way. You can look up reviews and all that. They all work. I'll have a link, some links in the description below on some popular ones. You can also buy some more expensive ones, as you can see, $289, etc. But what I really just wanted to explain here is that it can be extremely cheap to buy a shortwave radio. And for that reason, I really don't think there's any good reason to not buy one. Literally a homeless guy could walk into an electronics shop and buy a $10 shortwave radio just with the cash he begged from people. It's extremely easy to buy one, and you also get AM and FM radio. All shortwave radios have AM and FM too. So I think not getting one especially when we're going to go over why they're so nifty, I think it's really bad if you're not able to do that. We're going to go over the benefits of shortwave. Let me just enlarge in this text quickly. All right, and let me convert it to a text you guys can all see. All right, so some benefits of shortwave. We've already gone over how cheap it is, but we're going to go over some benefits. Number one, receiving radios cannot be tracked. The government can track you, triangulate you when you're transmitting a radio signal. They cannot triangulate you when you're just receiving one. So there's no threat of being tracked. There's no threat of even losing the radio or getting caught, unless if you're in North Korea or something and you're just openly doing it, then they'll know you're listening to some foreign radio program. That's the only spot in the world where there's a threat of being caught. If you're being constantly surveilled or something. But really, if you're not, then there's no big issue. It's free of censorship. It's extremely difficult to censor shortwave radio. I'll just briefly demonstrate how you can lose it, but it's going to be extremely... Hold up. I'm just trying to... It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. All right. Let me show... Sorry, I know this is taking some time, but I really don't want this there. All right. Sorry, this is acting all weird. Hold up. Huh. Here, I'll just go back in. Okay, so we're just going to briefly... There we go. All right, we're going to briefly explain why you don't actually have to worry about censorship on shortwave. So this is you. You're listening into shortwave. You're listening, and this guy's talking. All right, this is the broadcasting guy right here. He's broadcasting and sending his signal. This is the signal over to you from his antenna to your antenna. So let's say someone wanted to block that signal. The only way is for that other person to introduce a signal and just jam that signal, which means basically this guy might be operating 10 watts of power, then the jamming signal might operate 20 watts. That's the only way to stop a shortwave broadcast. But this guy, of course, he's smart, and so he just switches frequency, and there's tons of frequencies, and as long as this guy knows alternative frequencies and all that, then there's really no threat of censorship, because this guy could just switch frequencies all the time, and it would just get increasingly time-consuming and increasingly difficult to literally track him. That's why I say it's censorship-free. It's incredibly difficult to shut down a transmitter, actually. And like I said, low-cost entry, sub $30. But there's a way to do it for free. I gotta show you the way to do it for free. So the way to do it for free is to go to a website called Kiwi SDR. Kiwi SDR is this free online website where a bunch of people have basically taken a radio the size of a dongle, of a USB dongle, and what they've done is they have basically plugged it into a computer, taken out an antenna, and then obviously they can receive shortwave frequencies now. Now what they've done is that they've connected their radio signal, what they're listening to, and they've made it accessible to the public. So what this map is showing here is a bunch of different SDR dongles from all around the world that are all connected to this website. And then I can press, and they're all over the world. I can press on a dongle, and I can say, all right, I want to listen to, and I can select, and I can say, I want to listen to what Europe is receiving. Then I'll select, let's say, a station in Europe, and I'll be able to receive whatever radio frequencies they're receiving. Because you have to remember, even though shortwave frequencies are worldwide, it's still, you get different frequencies just by the way propagation works. Or let's say I want to listen to middle of the Atlantic, the Azores Island. But let's say I just want to listen to somewhere where I live, close to where I live, somewhere in nice, beautiful California. I'll go and click my favorite spot, Half Moon Bay. Sorry, I have to... Half Moon Bay. There we go. And I'll get sent to this. And this is now a radio I can listen to. I can listen to any signal. It'll ask you to just put in a name. And hold up. I need to. And now I can listen to radio signals to whatever that SDR, that little shortwave radio dongle is hearing with that antenna, is hearing in Half Moon Bay, California. So as you can see, there's a ton of different frequencies around here, but let's just briefly go to a broadcast so you can hear them. I'll go to a broadcast I like to listen to. Let me just see briefly. All right. So we're going to listen to some stations in the United States that are private. It's also going to be extremely noisy. So as you can see, there's an example of religious programming. Let's hear some. This might be political. This is a different station. And that is going to be Bob Bierman on WRMI. That's a shortwave private station. He's doing his show, Truth to Ponder. And he's just talking about, I guess, jobs and stuff like that. Let's listen to Radio Marty. This is from Cuba. Let's just take a listen and see what they're talking about, and then I'll talk more about some other stuff. But as you can see, there's a ton of different stations here. You have, of course, private stations. You have China Radio International. I just can't see a signal here. Oh, by the way, this is what this is called. It's called a waterfall display. And what it's showing is it's showing signals. And by varying degrees of colors, it's showing how strong the signal is. So as you can see, the base signal, just static, is just blue. And then you have these, of course, these little lighter blue. These are static noises, static crashes that you hear on the radio all the time, often from thunderstorms somewhere in the world. The red here is showing, and the yellow is showing that it is a very strong signal. But as you can see, if it's not as strong, you'll see this little. You see, it's just it's a bit more hazy. And that shows that the signal is not as strong. And in some cases, you'll just have a single line like this, and that shows a very weak signal. Let's just skip over to Radio Marty from Cuba. Oh, and as you can see, too, a bunch of different countries broadcasting. You have Radio something Amazon, Radio New Zealand. Let's see if we can pick them up. Nobody, obviously, so I'm going to switch over to Radio Marty. So obviously I can't talk Spanish, that's why I paused it. But I hope you got the point. That this is what you can do with shortwave. And this is a free version. However, it's because it's being sent to you via the internet, it's not going to allow you to listen to shortwave radio signals if the internet is down, or if you can't get on the internet or something like that, because government or corporations are preventing you from getting on there. So kind of the alternative is to get a real physical shortwave radio. And like I said, there's a lot of options there. My personal radio of choice is the C. Crane Skywave. I have owned this guy for around 3 or so years now. It goes for around $110. And I have it. You get AM, FM radio. You also get NOAA weather radio, plus an alert. You get shortwave broadcast. And you also get the airband, the radio frequency, VHF radio frequencies that airports and pilots use to talk to each other when planes are touching down and lifting off. It's a very good radio. As you can see, 4.3 out of 5 stars. I've had it for years. I love it. I'm not being paid to support it. I just love it that much that I'm recommending it to you. But as you can see, there's a lot of other cheap radios out there that work perfectly fine. Hold up. That work perfectly fine. You don't need to get an expensive radio at all. If you get an expensive one, you'll get some extra features that are very, very nice. But like, for example, let me show you. You can scroll down here and buy this little pocket guide, $10, and you're able to listen to probably a lot of good shortwave broadcast stations. And yeah, you're able to listen to most shortwave radio frequencies. As you can see, pretty good reviews. Let's just briefly see what some of the reviews are. Exadata has quite a few excellent radios. Here's another good one with a retro transistor radio vibe that performs a lot better than the ones did back when these types of radios were popular in the 1960s and 70s. That's an important note too. Radios like this are actually fairly well performing, even though they're dirt cheap, and that's just because because of transistors and microchips and all that, these discoveries in the last couple decades or so, it's become incredibly cheap to be able to make these radios. And actually, funnily enough, hilariously enough, most of the radios I've shown you right now, most of the physical ones, have the exact same chip in them. They just have some different functions and some extra stuff. Okay, let's see. This guy says the shortwave radio part is extremely sensitive. He said he compared the shortwave reception to a couple digital receivers he had. He was able to get everything on this radio that the bigger radios would get. That's pretty amazing, and that's pretty good. And like I said, $10. I mean, you're almost a fool if you didn't buy it. Runs off of AA batteries. Most of them run off of AA batteries. You can always get a bigger radio, $23 here, $48 here. Normally, when you buy a more expensive radio, you get some extra features like bigger screen, bigger antenna ports. Maybe yours is able to do MP3 files like this guy. You might be able to do USB-C charging, extra filters, stuff like that. I would recommend, if you have the available funds, to buy something nice like this $49 radio, just because they're very good quality and such. You can always get a pocket radio if you kind of want to have something like a Walkman and run around with that. I've never had the need to do that, so I've never bothered, but it's always the possibility. This is what I want everyone to stay away from. This is an emergency radio, and what you have to understand about emergency radios is that some of them are good, but these guys that do multiple tasks, for example, it has like 5 different functions. It can do flashlight, solar charging, hand crank, all of that. Often, even when they include shortwave, it's often not very great quality. So I don't recommend it, because often shortwave is like an afterthought. So that's definitely not a recommendation. If you're interested in using something like QESDR, something that requires a computer, and you don't want kind of an old-fashioned looking desktop radio, you can always buy something called RTL SDR. It's not the same as a QESDR, but it's like almost the exact same thing. The difference is QESDR is like a trademarked thing that gets your radio signal, gets the signals you're receiving through that dongle. Let me show you. A QESDR dongle, it's production status. It's like a dongle, like It's a dongle like this guy, except the difference is the dongle can send your radio frequencies over the internet to that website, QESDR. And if you don't want that, because they're a bit more pricey because of that, you can buy an RTL SDR. They run for like $50, and you'll get something looking very, very, very similar, basically to a QESDR. As you can see right here, this guy put it on his computer, and he got a nice waterfall display. This guy too. You're also able to do a lot more things with it. You can download an aircraft tracker that uses radio, airband radio signals, and you're able to track airplane movement, which could come in handy in an emergency scenario, and that sort of stuff. For RTL SDR, if you want to receive shortwave, you have to buy the version 4. I'll have a link in the description below. I don't have a version 4, I have a version 3, and it doesn't receive very well in shortwave or AM broadcast. But because of some improvements they did, version 4 RTL SDR dongles can receive very shortwave and AM radio extremely well. So that's what I'd recommend, get a version 4. And then second of all, the antennas that it gives you over here, see those telescopic antennas? Those are made mostly for VHF, UHF, or very high HF frequencies like CB. If you want to receive shortwave broadcasts very well, you'd want to get a different antenna that works better. But yeah, those are kind of your options for shortwave and stuff like that. You can always also go more expensive. There's some better SDR dongles out there like this guy, but they're more expensive. But like I said, it's all within your price range, and it's whatever you can afford. But I would definitely recommend, probably not an RTL SDR actually, because in an emergency scenario, you don't want to be dependent on a big laptop or something that you have to carry around to receive radio frequencies. Instead, I would feel more at peace personally if I had an actual physical shortwave radio, and that sort of thing. But like I said, it's all up to you whether you think that's a big issue or not. If you want to receive ham radio, military comms, you have to get a single sideband version radio. If you want to learn more about the differences between sideband, AM, FM, the various radio modes of modulation, you can check out my other video called Radio Basics of Radio. I recommend you do check that out. And I know this video is getting a bit long, folks, but I just want to end it with a brief little reason why you should care about what I'm doing here. So we've kind of gone over the last few minutes, just some extremely basic ways you can get into shortwave, some extremely cost-effective ways you can get into shortwave. But I think the big question everyone is asking is why? We've already gone over some benefits. We've already gone over some benefits. For example, there's less censorship. It's not trackable. Unlike your computer, they can track your computer and phone. And those are some benefits. But one benefit I'd say too is it doesn't require the internet and the cell network. As I've said before, the cell network is incredibly fragile, and you should not trust on it for your be all end all form of communications. Instead, I would recommend for you to get at least a shortwave receiving capable radio so that you can receive news that's not from the internet. I don't think I have to go over why an America First Patriot has to consider this seriously. We've seen through the past couple years how governments, corporations can stop you from getting the news out about certain stuff. We've seen how through the Hunter Biden laptop case, how governments can just literally go in and say to corporations, you can't allow media companies, you can't allow people to post this or else we'll go after you. And we've seen just with corporations in general, they're just normally willing to make it increasingly difficult to have any political opinions that are contrary to the mainstream. So those are some brief reasons why I am for using shortwave. Before I leave you, I just I just want to briefly go over some nice shows you can listen to. I'll use as an example WRMI. WRMI is a radio station, private radio station in America. The RMI part stands for Radio Miami International. I just want to briefly go over some. It operates on a few frequencies. My opinion is you can just find those frequencies if you just look it up. I'll have a link in the description below to this website. But it has some shows you can listen to. I recommend the Hal Turner Radio Show. That's a good show to listen to. VRW International. Oh, by the way, Hal Turner Show is like a conservative radio talk show guy. VORW Radio International is basically a form of just kind of some light commentary on stuff. Christian America Ministries is some right-wing show, some biblical show. Your Weekend Show with Bob Bierman is a classic show you could listen to. Bible News Prophecy, if you're into biblical prophecy, you can listen to that. There's World of Radio, where this dude, Glenn Hosser, talks about radio news. There's just a whole bunch of stuff like that. And it's really cool. I really do recommend you check it out. Here's Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman. That's a good show to listen to. Living by the Sword. I've never heard it, but it sounds interesting. But yeah, I'll have a link in the description to a few private radio programs that you can listen to, and they'll have their frequencies on here. But yeah, that's just kind of my thing is, those are some good stations to listen to. They have some good right-wing content shows. And I hope this brief little lecture, this brief little talk really got you to understand why those in the America First movement should use shortwave. In the coming weeks, we'll talk about how to actually talk on shortwave radio frequencies, not just listen. And we'll also talk about licensed and license-free methods of communication, as well as going deeper into shortwave radio pirates, because that's an interesting method of communication that could benefit the ham radio world. So with all that being said, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please ring that subscribe button, or ring that notification bell, click that subscribe button, smash that like button, drop a comment in the comment section below. Like I said, check for some links in the description below, links to radios, links to radio websites, links to the Kiwi SDR website. And with that all being said, this is the American Experience broadcasting live from the greatest country on God's green earth. Till next time, stay safe, stay free, America first, Christ is king, and have a good one, folks.